saying that this, these jeans make me look fat, right? You're saying you don't like the cut of this, you don't like the look of this shirt, right? And look, I share that with you because I think sometimes, for those especially that have yet to come to faith, I think sometimes the same thing can hold true. Like we talk about the good news, and when we hear good, we hear good, it's great. And yet, I think a lot of times when an unbelieving world sometimes hears good news, sometimes when they hear good, different thoughts come to mind. Sometimes they think, I don't measure up, or even worse, oftentimes one of the common misconceptions keeps people actually from taking that step of faith is when they hear good, they think, I've got to change. I've got to change first before I can take that step, before the good news can actually become good for me, right? And which, might I add, is one of the reasons I love this story so much. Because, get this, when Jesus shows up to Matthew, now again, you got to understand, Matthew was a bad man. Matthew had some issues. He was a guy who not only did some terrible things, but even more than that, it's interesting, when we catch up to Matthew in the story, it says that Matthew was at the tax collector's booth. In other words, he was literally in the act of cheating. It wasn't like, he'd done some bad things way in his past. Like, he was in the act. He was in the process of cheating these old ladies, cheating these widows out of their hard-earned money. Like, hey, I know Rome said they want 25%, but what you owe is 50% because I want my cut. Well, I don't have enough money for that. Well, it is what it is. We may have to just sell your kids. One of the things they would do oftentimes there to pay bills, right? Some are like, that's not such a bad idea, but they would, so their kids somehow have to pay taxes, right? And he's in the middle. He's doing this deed. He's doing this wrong. He's cheating these people out of their wealth, out of their money, out of their earnings. And Jesus walks up to him. And again, what you almost expect him to say, especially when we're talking about two-word message, is a message that probably a lot of us, I've shared this before, probably a lot of us, especially when we come to church, is a message that we're used to hearing. Those two words is simply stop it, right? Well, like that's what you would expect Jesus to show up and say, just stop it. Stop cheating people. Stop lying. Just stop it, right? And again, some of us, we're used to churches like that. Churches, 52-week series on how to stop it. And then we've got after that, we're going to have a 7-week series on how to stop it more, right? Stop it. But that wasn't the message Jesus gave. Jesus shows up on the scene, and rather than say, stop it. Yeah, it's true. Matthew would eventually stop it, but that wasn't the reason. The message was not what you need to stop, but what you need to start. See, for Jesus, it wasn't change and then follow me. It was follow me and you'll be changed. It wasn't change and follow me. It was follow me and you'll be changed. If you'll just start, if you'll just take a step. So many of us, we want to overcomplicate the message. Overcomplicate the gospel. If I get my act all together, if I get things changed, and then I can, the good news can become good news for me. And we overcomplicate, we overthink it. When in reality, the message is not, hey, stop it, change, and then follow me. It's, follow me. And listen, if you'll take a step, if you'll start to step with me and step after me and step closer to me, listen, your life is going to change. Listen, if you'll choose to follow me, I'm telling you, I'm going to lead you to freedom. I'll lead you to life. I'll lead you to rest. I'll lead you to a grace that you've never experienced before. A fulfillment and a joy, a purpose that can't be found in anyone but me, anyone but Jesus, right? And so, again, when we see this message, right, it's incredibly simple. And so Matthew, he hears this call. Hey, follow me. Follow me. And it's something about maybe just the simplicity of it. Just suddenly, this message that you've probably heard a million times, all of a sudden, like, it resonated. He's like, I like this. Sure, okay, yeah. Yeah, let's do this. All right, Jesus, yeah, I'll follow you. Where do you want to start? Where should we start? Where should we go? And of course, I love Jesus' response. All right, well, let's start at your house. Let's go to your place. And you can probably just imagine, like, Matthew's like, whoa. But Jesus, just I haven't been following you very long, right? Like, just going to apologize in advance. what you might find in my house, right? Because I've not been following you very long here. And so Jesus is like, no, I don't care. I'm going to follow you. Let's go to your house. Go to your place. So they show up. They go to Matthew's house. They get to Matthew's house, and you just imagine him. He's probably trying to make Jesus comfortable, show him how the recliner's working, puts the football game on, grills up some hot wings, and then probably no doubt kind of go in the back room and starts texting his friends, right? Like, guys, you're not going to believe this. But yeah, Jesus is here. Jesus in my house. And of course his buddy's probably like, whatever. Like, you're Matthew the tax collector. Nobody likes you. The only reason I like you is because I'm a tax collector too, and no one likes me, and like we're in this together, right? And they're probably listening and no, I'm telling you, Jesus is here. Jesus is in my house. He's right here with me. And you just imagine, like, no, I got to see this to believe in it. And so all of a sudden we see this crowd of tax collectors, sinners and tax collectors, right, that show up, the worst of the worst, right, show up to his house. And so they're there. And of course, the Pharisees, the religious, they get wind of this, they hear about this. And of course, it doesn't settle real well with them. And part of the reason it didn't settle real well with them is because there's something you got to understand about how they tended to kind of view, especially when it came to this idea sort of cleanliness and uncleanliness. See, you got to understand, there's a little bit of background. Pharisees, they had this perspective rooted very much in the law of the Old Covenant. And this law, and again, this important thread of cleanness and uncleanness. And there were some things that were clean, some things seemed to be unclean. And if you were considered unclean, then you couldn't worship God. You couldn't show up to church. You weren't even seen as acceptable to God. And it was a long list of things that could make you unclean. I mean, from disabilities to physical infirmity to simply like petting a dog. I mean, it was, there's a long list of things that could be seen as making you unclean. And so there were all kinds of these processes actually too around that time that you'd have to go through to get clean enough to go to church, get clean enough to get to that place where you could worship God. Because that's something you got to understand about their viewpoint of uncleanness, especially in the Old Testament. It was seen to be something as transferable. In other words, it was like a disease. It was contagious. And so if you were unclean, you could spread your uncleanness. So like if someone was deemed to be unclean and say maybe you went through the process of because sometimes these processes to get clean enough to be able to step into church, to step into this place where they could worship God, they would sometimes last as much as like 7 days. They'd go through all these kind of rituals and this whole process of getting clean, getting sterilized to the point they could go and be acceptable to God. And so you can just imagine, a guy walking in there, he's gone through his process 7 days, and his buddy, he's just kind of done, walking his dog, gives him a high five, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to start the process all over again. Because again, this process, this ideal that your uncleanness, your sin, your failure, it could be transmitted, it was transferable, it was contagious. And this was the mindset the Pharisees had going into this. And so when they're looking at Jesus, in the middle of this crowd, all these sinners, all these tax collectors, the worst of the worst, I mean, they're appalled. They're taken back. They don't understand how this can be. But here's what I love about this story. See, Jesus had a very different perspective when it came to this. In fact, in Luke 17, there's a story where Jesus comes across these 10 lepers and really kind of gives us a great insight into this very different perspective that Jesus had in relation to cleanness and uncleanness. And as these lepers, of course, oftentimes back in that day, speaking of the fact they viewed uncleanness as being contagious, one of the things lepers were always asked to do is if they came across anybody who was not a leper, is they had to constantly yell out, "I'm unclean. Unclean." It was basically they would say that, so hey, keep away, because I don't want you to get contaminated. I don't want you to get what I got. And so they're doing that, except for something happens that's a little bit different in Luke 17. See, normally lepers, again, they would yell out unclean for people to stay away, but it's almost as if they'd already heard that what Jesus had did, what Jesus had come to do, and the healings and the miracles that Jesus had done and performed. And so rather than saying unclean to get Jesus to avoid them, they were yelling unclean, that Jesus would be brought near to them, that Jesus would somehow heal them, free them from their infirmity. And so Jesus does just that. Jesus goes up to him and they're yelling out, I'm unclean. Jesus, would you heal me? Would you set me free from this condition? And of course, you can just imagine as they're saying this, they're thinking that Jesus is probably just going to say something. Say, no, listen, just be healed and call it good. But that's not what Jesus does. Jesus, rather than just say, hey, be healed, go on your way, he actually reaches out to embrace them. And in a scene where you can just imagine sort of the disciples nearby, and it's probably for them it was like slow motion. Right? Like they're watching, they're in their mind, they're like, no, don't touch him. Like, if you touch him, you're going to get what he's got. You're going to get leprosy. You're going to get the sin. You're going to get the mess. Like, Jesus, you can't touch him. And they're watching. He's like, no. And he touches him. He embraces him. Says, hey, you're healed. And listen, I love this image and I love this story because in doing it, it's easy to just kind of gloss over that, like, oh, what's the big deal? But man, this was a huge deal. Yes. Because for the disciples, like they're watching it, like they're expecting, like, oh man, that's the end of that. It was good while it lasted, but Jesus got leprosy now. Like they're waiting for a finger to fall off, you know. I mean, they're it's over. Yet that doesn't happen. Jesus doesn't lose a finger. He doesn't get sick. He doesn't get ill. No, what happens is the person he embraced, the leper, got healed. And here's why that's significant. It is in doing that one simple act, what we come to discover is that for them, they moved from this place from no to whoa, like what just happened here? Something changed. And it was like all of a sudden the brokenness and the sinfulness and the uncleanliness, what we see in this picture is what we discover. It's not that was contagious, but in Jesus, by embracing the leper, and then the lepers finding healing in that, what we discover is, no, through Jesus' lens, how Jesus viewed it was that it's actually righteousness and joy and goodness and peace and hope that's contagious. It's not the mess, it's not the sin, it's our hope that we carry that is contagious. And see, behind this value of everyone matters was this truth that his hope was contagious. Like, get this, Jesus didn't sit around just hoping someone didn't come around to him and steal his cleanliness. He didn't just go around hoping that someone wouldn't like smudge his white pants, which I seriously doubt Jesus wore white pants. You know, if he did, I'm sure he wore them in a very masculine way because he was a man's man. I bet. Jesus, he walked into the mess and the mass of humanity. He waded into the filth of humanity. Goes up to the worst guy in the town. Says, listen, I'm coming to your house. Amen. I'm going to hang out with you. No, Jesus, you don't understand. You don't understand what I did. You don't understand the full extent of just what I was doing right when you showed up. Like you can't come to my house. Like what happens? You're going to get what I got. You're going to get the... She's like, no. It's not your mess that's contagious. No, it's my hope that is contagious. My hope. My righteousness. My church is... I can't... See, Jesus understood this, and what we got to get is he understood what he's trying to get across in Matthew. Listen, there's nothing you can do to make me unholy, but there's something I can do to make you holy before God. And righteous before God and acceptable before God. Because listen, this hope is contagious. And listen, that's why, as the church, the ecclesia, the called out ones, that's what ecclesia means. Called out to make a difference, called out to live for a purpose much bigger than just ourselves. Listen, this isn't Field of Dreams we're talking about. It's not if you build it, they'll come. Right? Like, oh, just wait around for some good people to show up. No, it's man, what I love about this story, what I love about this picture is it's a reminder that when you want to get to the very heart of what the church is about, this cause of Christ, listen, it's about being a launching pad into a darkened world. Yeah, we come together, but we come together to ultimately go out to make a difference, to go out into all the world, understanding that this hope that we have, this life that we have, this freedom we have, listen, it's contagious. It's contagious. And in fact, Jesus at one place when he's talking about says, says, listen, he's talking to Peter. He says, listen, I'm going to build my church on you. And listen, not even the gates of hell will prevail against you. Now notice he doesn't say the F-18s of hell will prevail against you or the tanks of hell will prevail against you. The gates of hell, because the gates are defensive. They're defensive, which means that listen, as the church of Jesus Christ is being a part of this movement of sharing this hope and sharing this life and sharing this grace and sharing this good news we have. We're meant to be on the offensive, understanding that the hope we have is contagious. We just get out there and get with the Matthews and show up at the Matthew homes and just get around people. Listen, if you've got the hope of Jesus Christ, it's going to rub off on other people. Amen. It's going to change other people. And listen, part of the reason I share this with you is when I was reading this and when I was putting this together, I can tell you it was super convicting to me. Because, I think so often in church and even as a pastor, sometimes it can be really easy to kind of sit back and just kind of commiserate about the evils of the world. Like, man, there's so much bad stuff out there. They're doing this and they're doing that, and church, it's hard soil. Where we're at, it's hard ground to reach people, right? And yet, this reality that His hope is contagious, it really convicted me. Because if we really believe that, we really understand that. Listen, could it be that this world that we love to sometimes kind of sit around and kind of talk about, it's going to hell in a handbasket and all this. Listen, could it be it's not that the world has somehow gotten darker, but our light has gotten dimmer? Amen. That we have lost the sight of this cause, lost sight of this mission, that we're called to not simply just come together and just hang out and have holy huddles, but we're called to go out into this world around, to share and to be light and to be this contagious hope that we have in this life with Jesus Christ. See, this leads us kind of to the last thing that we're going to kind of wrap up with, and yet maybe the most important part of the story is that when we look at Jesus, when we look at this story, not only was his message simple, not only is his hope contagious, but you got to understand his purpose was incredibly clear. And not just his purpose as it related to him and his ministry, but to us as his church. And we see this in Matthew 9:13, and I like how the Message quotes. It says, "Who needs a doctor? The healthy or the sick? Go figure out what the Scripture means. I'm after mercy, not religion. I'm here to invite outsiders, not couple insiders." So often, as a church, we can really we can get excited about numbers. We can get excited about the numbers of when people that come, and maybe the numbers of giving, and we go to church conferences, and that's all we ever talk about. We talk about the numbers, and listen, Jesus was into numbers too, but not the numbers that you and I always tend to think. See, we always get excited. We get excited about the numbers of people on the inside who are already here. Like we get excited, and listen, we should be, because every one of you represents a life, a story of God doing a transforming work. Like we should celebrate that, right? But listen, while Jesus celebrated that wasn't the driving force of his mission. Like Jesus cared about numbers, but again, it wasn't the numbers we always think about. See, for Jesus, the numbers that drove his ministry, that drove his ministry while he walked the earth was listen, it wasn't everyone who was on the inside. It was the numbers of people on the outside. See, what drove him it was not how many people we fill up here on a Saturday night or on a Sunday morning down in Walport. It was the 7,000 to 8,000 people in Newport that still don't have a church home. Amen. The 7,000 to 8,000 people who have not heard the gospel message, who don't have the hope and don't have the life and don't have the grace that so many of you have in this room. See, what got him excited, what drove him, his purpose was again, and listen, I get the pushback because we look at that like, well, that was Jesus, right? That's Jesus. That was Jesus' mission. Listen, it doesn't stop there. No, Jesus makes it really clear that wasn't just his mission to go and to go out into all the world. It's our mission too. Matthew 28:19-20 says, Jesus, undeterred, went right ahead and gave this charge. Said, God authorized and commanded me to commission you. Go out and train everyone you meet. far and near in this way of life, marking them by baptism in the threefold name, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, then instruct them in the practice of all I've commanded you. And get this, I'll be with you as you do this. I'll be with you as you do this, day after day, right up to the end of age. What is the this? It's the going out. It's the being a light in a darkened world. It's sharing this contagious hope. See, what he's getting at is to the lost, he says, come. But to the found, he says, go. To the lost, he says, come. Come, all who are weary, all who are tired, all who are tired of trying to live life your own way. Tired of the emptiness of what the world has to offer. Hey, come to me. Come into a relationship with me. And listen, just trust me. And I'll follow me. And listen, I will lead you to life. I'll lead you to freedom. But to the found, he says, go. Go into all the world. Go into your neighborhood. Go into your job. Go to your house. Go to the Matthew houses of the world. And listen, I share this with you because, again, I believe that He's got an incredible vision. He's got a big plan for us this year. I think God's going to do amazing things for us. Yeah. But listen, it's never going to happen if we are a community that sees the goal of faith as simply just coming and sitting. Just coming and man, you're singing songs, man, I just want more of you, God, which isn't really theologically correct. Truth is you can't get more of God, but you can't get less of you. And it's a process of getting less of you, experience more of God.